Welcome back, pirates. We finally made it, our final destination. So Lake Watauga is where we were heading the whole time. So as you saw in the last episode, we came to Lake Watauga, right near the boats area there on the coastal line. We jumped over that and landed on Iron Mountain. So Iron Mountain will be our main focus today. I'm going to walk you through the first couple of days of boots on the ground in this beautiful location here. By the way, Lake Watauga does mean beautiful waters, so great tie into the text there. But today our main focus will be Iron Mountain, which lies just kind of north there of the lake. I'm going to walk you through a couple of days of boots on the ground. We're just going to eliminate a ton of search area. That way I'm going to save you a tremendous amount of time, energy, and money in today's episode. So if y'all are ready, let's jump in. Back to Earth view. So back here at Watauga Lake, this will be, of course, our main point of interest today. Just to get your bearings here, these are the boats that we came in on, kind of jumped the shoreline here, landed on Iron Mountain. Let me drop a pin here so you can see it. And that'll be our main point of interest today here is Iron Mountain. So just to get everybody up to speed, give them some perspective here, I cracked the book on a Monday. I basically made it to the lake and Iron Mountain here by Wednesday. I worked a 10-hour day on Thursday and then flew out on Friday. So definitely don't recommend going boots on the ground that quickly. There was a part of me though that was like, hey, maybe John's not that clever. Maybe this map is easier than he thought. And you know, just thinking about if I were to put out a map to the world and hide some treasure, I feel like everybody would solve it the first day. So I figured it might be worth a shot. Go out there, let's see what's going on. So to start, I enlisted the help of the second and third greatest treasure hunters of all time, which would be my father and son. They are just troopers, man. I tell them I think I've solved the treasure. Literally no questions asked. They're just all in. They fly out with me. No complaining. I mean, if I keep them fed, they'll literally walk for days and just look for this treasure. So I recommend finding somebody like that that you can go out with and find this thing because it's super helpful. All right, so we fly in on a Friday afternoon. We land here basically in this area here, which is the north end of the mountain. So my initial thoughts were I'm focusing on everything at the top of the map. So we're looking at the Car North, the Bare Feet, the High Point, and the Northeast, the 1727 Northeast, Northwest. You know, who knows which direction it's really going. But at the time, I felt pretty strongly it was Northeast. So from there, my initial thoughts were Car North. So I figured John would probably want us to park at the north end of Iron Mountain, which is going to be in this area here. We'll go to the high point and then we'll walk 1727 feet, either northeast or northwest from the high point, and that should potentially be a good searching area. And of course, I have a list in my phone of 10 different solves that we're going to be checking along the way. 1727 can represent many things, which is about a third of a mile. So highly focused on all different kinds of solves throughout this. But that was the big one and the premise behind parking north here and heading in. Switching to the Appalachian Trail view here, it gives you a little more clear idea of where the trail actually was. So we came in and parked at the trailhead here of Highway 91, cross section of Cross Mountain Road. There's a little parking lot here. I'll post a picture. That's where we began our hike. We basically follow the trail up to the peak of Iron Mountain, and then you follow it all the way in. So this whole mountain range is pretty long. There is a shelter within the mountain. Let me see if it'll pop it up here. So here's your shelter. This shelter here on the bottom left represents about 5 miles in from the road. So we ended up searching all the way to that point. So even though John says it's within 3 miles of a road, I don't know if that's 3 miles on a trail or is that 3 miles as the bird or the crow flies, as they would say. So we did both, and basically 3 miles of the trail as a crow flies is about 5 miles of trail. So we basically covered all this ground in between the parking area all the way to this shelter. So a few things we liked in this area. We found a gravestone, which is pretty interesting. It was by a man named Grindstaff, which was some recluse that lived in the mountains. So that was a good point of interest there. His tombstone reads, lived alone, suffered alone, and died alone. So real sentimental there, gravestone built by his family. Still turned out to be nothing. Couldn't tie it into the book or anything at all from there. This is a pretty intense hike. So the trail is cleared, not well maintained, but it's a lot of ups and downs. So you're walking from peak to peak basically, and we were looking for that high point. And I tell you what, every time we hit one peak, we look over, northwest there, or southwest, I should say, and sure enough, the next peak always looked taller. So we're like, oh well, maybe it's that one, and we just kept going and going and going. So it was a heck of a hike through these mountains here. It's no joke. So eventually, after 5 miles of hiking, we did arrive at the shelter. So, uh, shelter was a lot of fun. I mean, just really seemed like a great place to leave a clue. It had like a sign-in book, so we flipped through all that. Tried to find anything that John may have left behind or any icons that he may have tied in, because there's a lot of graffiti, people carving things into the woods and things like that. So I know John wouldn't deface anything, but still could have been definitely some cool tie-ins there. But unfortunately, this was all a bust, and we were able to eliminate a lot here. Now, one of the big key things that you can't really see on Google Earth, but that I can tell you, is that everything on the east side of the mountain, so everything on the lake side, is way too steep to hike. So that eliminates a tremendous amount of area. I'll put up a picture here of basically all the areas that we've eliminated just on day one here. So first day in, first night in, we crashed at a local hotel in the nearest town. Again, last minute planning, boots on the ground, bad idea. We ended up in like, they said their non-smoking wing was under construction. So we ended up in a wing, although we are in a non-smoking room, we're in a smoking wing. So basically that first night in, I got up at 5 o'clock that morning. I'm laying there at midnight listening to some hair band music blaring in the room next door. I had to get up, put a towel down to block the crack under the door as the smoke was pouring in from the hall. It was just brutal. Thankfully, my dad and son were sleeping like babies, so they didn't really get bothered by it. But I'm pretty sure I also had heard a gunshot go off in the middle of the night. They didn't even hear it. So pretty funny. Very interesting first night in town. Second night, not doing that again. We drove about 45 minutes in, hit the Hampton Inn in Bristol. So shout out to the little ladies running the breakfast there at Hampton Inn. Absolute lifesaver. Super comfortable beds, non-smoking, and had a great breakfast the next day to get us back on track here. So day two, I get up 5 a.m. like I always do, head down, having some great hot coffee at our New Hampton Inn location. I pull out the laptop. Of course, I'm studying the map in Google Earth here, and that's when I find the crater. So this was a huge breaking point for us. Being out, boots on the ground, gave us a whole new life on what to do next. So let me show y'all what I mean by this crater. So if you look closely on the physical map in the book, you'll see, I'm going to post a picture here, you'll see this crater that I'm looking at here. So I'm looking at Google Earth, and I zoom in and I see this massive drain on Lake Watauga. I was like, holy cow, that match is just beautiful. Let me jump in here live view just to give you a better idea or perspective on what I'm talking about here with this crater drain type solve. So as you can see here, you got the drain in the lake, really cool feature. If you're ever there, definitely go check it out. You can kind of walk up close to it and get a good visual on it. It's pretty neat. But looking at using our cellophane paper here, this should give you kind of a better idea of what I had found. I didn't have all the tools I needed at the hotel to really dive deep into this. It was a pretty quick solve, and then we were hitting the road. So bear with me here. But to the left I outlined kind of the dam here with the drain hole. To the left of that, you'll see the mountains. So if you kind of rotate this down, you'll see there are big mountains here next to it. They actually fit really nicely here with the ridges as well. Jumping back top view though, you'll see the dam area here with the drain, and then of course the high point X 1727. So reflecting back, I think I was really just hung up on that high point being the highest point. That was my bias, that was my bad, and I think that's where I went wrong initially there on our second true hike day. So we basically would come up to the south end of Iron Mountain here and do exactly what we did the first day, just on this end, kind of looking for that high point, trying to walk off 1727 from there. And of course, we always have a handful of other solves that we're hitting as well along the way, but that's where we go from there. So what's the quickest way to get to the high point on the south end of the mountain? And that would be to park right here at this trail where the Appalachian Trail ties in and head in from there. So of course we're checking all the third of the mile in, checking meters, we're checking all the different peaks here, uh, finding valleys that we could potentially walk off 1727 feet at any peak. And we did the same exact thing, came all the way into this Van de Veter shelter, and that's basically what we did. So unfortunately, still no signs of a box. This would complete our day 2. We did have to fly out that evening, so we were under the watch of time here. And we did confirm east side of this mountain on this end, also uninhabitable. Just can't hike it, too steep. There was a small little trail down here that we walked off closer to the lake, but didn't seem feasible. Way too many people would be there. This lake gets pretty busy in the summertime, so a lot of people using the shorelines and beaches. To give you a visual, essentially this is the areas we eliminated on day 1 and 2 of our first boots on the ground trip. So that gives you a good idea how much ground we covered. Gave us great perspective on things though. Really like the area to hide a box in. It's kind of like, rural, but it's also plenty of people around. Saw a couple through hikers come by, but it's definitely a cool place to hide a box. Just a beautiful location. On this south end we were hiking, I was able to see the boats from the mountain. So that was super helpful as far as just kind of getting an idea of where that jump would have made. Was it at these boats or was it further down at these boats? I was able to walk the whole thing there in that area. So we were able to really get good perspective on all that. And that would pretty much wrap up our first boots on the ground trip. So flying home on the plane, kind of combing through everything we'd been through, all the ground we'd covered, all the thoughts and theories, pretty much hit me. I knew almost immediately where I thought we may have gone wrong. So I was able to go home, kind of regroup, confirm exactly where we went wrong, and that would of course produce our second boots on the ground trip. So join us next week here. I'm going to go second round of boots on the ground. We'll cover more land, eliminate a lot more area, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. So any comments, concerns, questions, jump in chat here or jump in the comments. Let me know and meet me back here next week. See you.